fellow Toastmaster, have you ever had a brilliant idea, but then you realize that there is nobody to listen to that idea? That was me almost 1 year ago. I had a brilliant plan because I knew that I can speak on the topic. I had vision of what I do and what I can sell, but the only thing that I found missing was people who I could communicate my idea to. But there were two folks, my wife and my dog. These two were the ones that always used to listen to my ideas. And between them, only one used to wag their tail. And that's where I realized that there's an importance in my life to build up a brilliant communication plan. Why? Because till the time you can do something and you do not have a communication plan, your ideas would be good for nothing. And hence started my quest for building a great communication plan. And came in the first step, which I call as the seed of what I wanted to convey. Now, I am a sort of an individual who is good at HR technology, who is good at leadership, communications, and good into technologies with a depth of not only HR tech, but how cloud infrastructure works. This is what I want to convey, not only to the peers around, but to a whole lot of the world. So I knew that I had the seed. This is the seed that I wanted to plant. But what was missing next was, where do I want to plant this? Came in the point of, what is the soil? Which I call it as finding my soil. I always wanted to understand of where I could propagate this idea. And hence came in the next step, which was finding the right soil. And then I realized that there are three audiences which would be interested in knowing about this particular plan, which would be first leaders in the industry of HR technology, or maybe leaders in the industry of infrastructure and cloud technology. The second audience point would be somebody who are like youngsters who are fresh into, say, Oracle Cloud landscape or a cloud native landscape, and would be very interested to understand what I can offer and at the same time what they can learn from it. And the third and the interesting aspects were peers. Peers, because this is the audience that I want to capture, to not only teach them, but maybe learn from them as well of what they are doing in their industry. And hence I had all the three ingredients. It was not like, I want to kind of, do it with my cousin who is into real estate and he would have brought in some more value. I found the value would be in identifying the right audience, and this was my right audience. And as I continued into the further steps, I realized the next step eventually was finding the place where I would do this, which would be, I would call it as finding my sunlight. My sunlight of how I could expose this content into what platforms which could bring me into this communication plan and drive it forward. And I found my right sunlight in three fashions. One was a personal website. Now, Toastmaster Jyoti, you would realize that anybody who doesn't have a personal website in the year 2025 is not doing justice to their professional or personal careers. So personal website was the first thing. Second one was a blog which would talk about the depth of knowledge that I bring into a particular industry with HR technology, digital transformation, and whatnot. So the blog was the second pillar of finding this sunlight. And the final one, which would make a dent in the universe, would be the LinkedIn. LinkedIn, because that's the platform which would propagate these blogs to a place where everybody and anybody can see, and the blog actually earns some important traffic, not just driven by what the LinkedIn algorithm is. And obviously I didn't want it to be more like a fact where only that real estate cousin, remember, that I spoke about, is the only one who comes and then likes my posts. And hence I had my sunlight there, which was at the right personal website, a blog, and then the LinkedIn channels. And from there I moved into the next segment, which was, what would I do? And this was the main course of the thing, is how do I water this particular soil? And the idea here was of what would I actually put on that blog, on that LinkedIn post, or on that personal website. And this was the main content. Now, you would realize that anybody can dump content on a blog. But I didn't want it to be like that. Why? Because a communication which is thrown to people is not being absorbed. The ideal way is how you can transform it into a storytelling. And that is where I found where my content would be. I started kind of creating these blogs which would be more meaningful, which would be rich in content and not just talk about anything or a dump picked up from somewhere. So the content ideally was more in terms of how the blog can be accustomed to a storytelling format. How the blog ideally can talk about challenges and then the solutions that were offered to these challenges. The blog also kind of spoke about the LinkedIn website rather also spoke about of not only how I was able to transform a particular cloud migration, but at the same time how that cloud migration would help people in the longer run. And that is where I started building up vision. Now this was interesting because every time you put up a content which is out there for absorption, it has to be in the right fashion. And herein came within the content as a part of the storytelling came in the important aspect of how would you dress it. Now you would agree that when you go to office, you are dressed formally. And say for example, if I go to a Toastmasters meeting, I may dress in a kurta. Now that's the same Rajdeep who's getting dressed, but the form is different. And same goes in with the content. The content, like in a blog, would be detailed technical depth. But in a LinkedIn, it should be interesting and enthusiastic enough so that it can pull in people who have a leadership capabilities and bring them in and then eventually direct to the blog. This is where I found that dressing the content is very important. You can't dress it in the same fashion on every single platform. This formed the source of my basic communication plan. So the first one that I kind of reiterate would be finding the right content, putting it into storytelling, and then eventually propagating it. And once all of this was done, the final step was the harvest. Tell me what a harvest means. Harvest ideally means that how would you now reap the benefits of this platform? And this is the most interesting part of the communication plan that I envision. Because within this plan, what I realized is, if it is not growing organically, it will not grow. And you have to give time and patience to it. With time and patience came in the part of how do we do it consistently. So the strategy there then evolved into how I can do this consistently, and which then turned into one blog per month, one LinkedIn post every single week, and then every 15 days customizing the personalized website. These three strategies to make it consistent, timely fashion, and in a disciplined manner. Now my family used to think that, oh, what is he doing Friday night, 11 p.m., just sitting on the computer? But soon they realized that this is not some digital cult that he has joined, but more importantly, that something that he's trying to propel himself forward. And with this particular harvest came in the final and the fruitful answer, which was how is it materializing? And this I started seeing in aspects like first time when it materialized, when I was into a seminar and somebody walked up to me and said, we really liked your artificial intelligence article that you had written. And I was surprised to my core that somebody is actually reading my blogs. The LinkedIn post that I'm doing is actually garnering some attention. And I was truly mesmerized by the fact that somebody is recognizing me in the seminar, coming up to me and speaking about it. This was the moment when I found that the plan that I had put into place is actually working. Another instance was when one of my direct reports who was working on a particular problem, he came that we are not able to solve it. And when we spoke in detail, he realized that he had gone through my WordPress blog and he was able to find half of the answers there, and this is the same blog that I had written almost 3 years back. And I was so very happy to the core that whatever I'm doing now is helping someone in a particular fashion. And of the same matter comes in the feedback in the same particular plan, wherein one of my Toastmasters friend also told me that where all my personal blog can evolve, whether it needs a dot, whether it needs a particular amendment in the terms of how the chatbot is operating, whether it is in first person and third person. And from that feedback, continue the growth that I wanted to have, not only on the personal website, not only on the blogs, but in how I can enhance the LinkedIn platforms to find and garner better content. All in all, I felt like this entire plan of how I have prepared has worked. Fellow Toastmasters, for you, what happens when you have a brilliant idea and you are stuck? Are you actually trying to find out a fine communication plan that can work in the best of our capabilities and then garner not only the strength that you have and showcase it to the audience, but at the same time bring in the self-confidence that you have to take your communication plan to the next level? Or how do you feel when there is a brilliant idea, like say an atta chakki that you would have, and you feel like, oh, this has to propagate, but then you are finding yourself stuck that it is not propagating to the right audience? The ideal way lies in doing the same way that I did. First one is find your seed. What is it that you want to propagate? Second one, find the soil. Find your audience. Which is the audience that you would like to get this idea to. Third one is find your sunlight and find how you would water it with the so that you can get the right harvest there. All in all, when this plan is baked, I feel every single time you would have something that you can not only propagate your idea but maybe learn in this process as well. Me, if you look back at, is somebody that I now when I tell about my idea, it's not only those two people and my dog wagging the tail. It is actually the audience attention that I garner whenever I go to seminars and whenever I go to any particular meet, and people recognize me by saying that either they have read my blog post or people getting inspired that looking at your blog post, they have started our own blog post. So it's all about how you can bake your idea into a communication plan and use this communication plan to propel your seed forward. I would look forward to you being game in this. Over to the Toastmaster of the day.